Today, Nally Elementary would like to recognize all of our April Leaders of the Month. We are so proud of these students for their outstanding leadership in the classroom, on the playground, in the lunchroom, and in the hallways here at Nally. Every day, these students work hard to exhibit the 7 habits. Today, I will recognize students in each grade and tell you a little something about them. Okay, starting off in kindergarten, we have Mrs. Craig's class. We have Carter SNELL. Carter demonstrates all of the 7 habits. Mrs. Craig said Carter makes our classroom a better place with his smile, reminders of the do's and don'ts, growth mindset, and a laugh that warms your heart. He's truly worked on all the habits with grit and sincerity. Mrs. Craig said she is blessed to be your teacher. We also have Daisy Freeman in Mrs. Craig's class, who is proactive and puts first things first. Daisy is a quiet leader. She leads by example when she comes in smiling each morning. She gets right to work without a peep. Thank you, Daisy, for leading by example. In Mrs. Parton's room, we have Carolyn Hartman, who synergizes. Kara is so kind and helpful. Mrs. Parton said we love how she is happy and joyful. She includes everyone and makes them all feel important. We also have Zane Glassner in Mrs. Parton's room, who is proactive. Zane loves to share stories and his ideas. He is working really hard at waiting his turn to share them. Mrs. Parton said, I am so proud of his hard work. He is very patient and understanding. In Mrs. Rankin's room, we have Bethany Hicks, who is proactive. Bethany continues to adapt to our kindergarten expectations. She is working very hard and is always remembering never to give up. Way to go, Bethany. Also, we have Grayson Shanes, who is proactive. Grayson has adapted to kindergarten at Nolly School. He is showing growth in all areas such as educationally, behaviorally, maturity, and developmentally. Mrs. Rankin said, I am very proud of Grayson and his progress this year. In Mrs. Zukowski's room, we have Everly Yoakum. Everly is proactive and thinks win-win. Everly has really made learning her big rock this school year. She is also choosing kindness daily. Keep working hard and making Nolly a better place, Everly. We also have Uji Joy McGrill, who is proactive and synergizes. Uji truly brings joy to our classroom. She is always smiling. Uji is a good friend too. Thank you for brightening up Nolly.
In first grade in Mrs. Bowser's class, we have Casey Golke. Casey listens attentively, is respectful, and sets an outstanding example for her classmates to follow. You go, girl. Also in Mrs. Bowser's class, we have Sydney Jellison. Sydney begins with the end in mind. Sydney sets her own academic goals and works hard to achieve them. Way to go, Sydney. And in Mrs. Beard's class, we have Braxton Kelly. Braxton puts first things first. Braxton is such a hard worker in first grade. He always puts first things first by getting his work done, participating in class, and always doing his best. Way to go, Braxton. Also in Mrs. Beard's class, we have Maylee Morris. I am so proud of Maylee for how hard she has been working on her reading. She's volunteering more in class and using her strategies. Way to go, Maylee. She's putting first things first.
Okay, in Mrs. Rector's room, we have David Howd, who puts first things first and synergizes. Mrs. Rector said, with hard work and lots of practice, David is becoming an amazing reader. She said, I can count on him to turn in his reading slips each week. Way to go, David. Also in Mrs. Rector's room, we have Lucy Jansen, who thinks win-win, synergizes, and sharpens a saw. Lucy is a friend to all. She's kind, always willing to lend a helping hand. She is creative and fun. Super job, Lucy.
In Mrs. Speezer's class, we have Declan Miller, who begins with the end in mind. Declan has been learning the importance of setting a goal and making a plan to exceed. Also, we have Blake White. He puts first things first. Blake has made a great effort in putting his learning first for Mrs. Fiesler and Mrs. Behrens. Way to go.
All right.
In second grade, in Mrs. Grannon's class, we have Paxton CRINE. He follows Habit 5. Paxton has a heart of gold and is always willing to listen to others well with an open heart. And also in Mrs. Grannon's class, we have Gracie Weaver. Gracie Gracie follows habit 3. Gracie has made such tremendous gains with putting first things first. This year, I am so proud of her.
Way to go, Gracie.
In this Slimax class, we have Ada Dusky. Ada is a proactive student with a desire to learn. She takes pride in her work and tries her best. Watch out, 3rd grade. Also in Mrs. Slimax, we have Jack Vargo. He thinks win-win. Jack has been working hard, tackling challenges, skills. He has a proactive, can-do attitude and always loves to help others. In Mrs. Truax's class, we have Gracie Hughes. Gracie is a hard worker and responsible each and every day. Gracie does the right thing even without even being asked, and even when no one is looking. Keep it up, Gracie. In Mrs. Van Dorsten's class, we have Ben Largent. Ben does a great job with balancing school, wrestling, and fun. We also have Dexter Lysick. He puts first things first. Dexter puts first things first every morning. He comes into class, he gets his morning work, and works on it right away.
Way to go, Dexter and Ben. Okay, moving on to our 3rd grade leaders. Our first student is in Mrs. Braley's room, and it is Paige Milhone, who thinks win-win and synergizes. This month, the class picked the leaders. Some of the things the students said about Paige was that she is kind to everyone. When she is my partner, she always synergizes, and she thinks win-win by encouraging others. Way to be a leader, Paige. Also, we have Levi Johnson in Mrs. Braley's room, who seeks first to understand and synergizes. Mrs. Braley said, "Wow, Levi, you are a great friend. Your classmates said they can always count on you to be there if they need a friend. They said you are helpful, thoughtful, kind, and have a smile on your face every day. I recently saw that you included a new student in a game with you and others." Mrs. Braley said she is so proud of you for choosing kindness because it is contagious, Levi. Way to go. Also in 3rd grade in Mrs. Esterly's room, we have Costa Lazik. Costa puts first things first. Costa is a true leader. He begins every morning setting up for himself for success. Great job, Costa. Also, we have Wyatt Leposki, who synergizes. Mrs. Esterly said Wyatt has been working hard on synergizing with his classmates. Keep it up, Wyatt. In Mrs. Stassens' class, we have Mason Howard, who thinks win-win. She said, "I am choosing Mason for Leader of the Month because he is always positive and uplifting whenever someone is down. Knowing when someone needs cheered up is a big part of having good friendships. Keep it up, Mason." Also in Mrs. Stassens' class is Kendall Bogle. Kendall has made amazing progress this year. She is proactive. She gets to work and even works ahead sometimes to make sure she stays on track. I am so proud of you for your hard work, Kendall. In Mr. Straub's class, we have Ryan Niederberger. Ryan sharpens the saw. Since coming to Nolly, Ryan has made many friends, and after finishing his work, they always have fun together. We are glad you are here, Ryan. Also in Mr. Straub's class, we have Jace Searoyd, who is proactive. Jace is turning into quite the leader in the classroom. He has really been trying to solve his work and complete it before looking for help. Way to go, Jace.
Now the 4th graders. First in Mrs. Gardner's class is DJ Ringer. DJ thinks win-win. DJ is a hard worker and a great helper in our 4th grade classroom. He is almost always the first one ready with supplies and has a positive attitude. Keep up the good work, DJ. In Mrs. Oak's class, we have Eason Boyd. Eason synergizes. Eason makes a great partner. He values other people's strengths and learns from them. He knows that 2 heads are better than 1. Eason is a good leader because he lets other people in his life and his work. Next in Mrs. Oak's class, we have Christopher Sohn. Christopher is proactive. Chris has a can-do attitude. He doesn't blame others. He does the right thing without being asked, even if nobody's looking. Chris is definitely ready for the 5th grade, and he will be very successful at the middle school. In Mrs. Toast's class, we have Brody Bennett. Brody is proactive. Brody is proactive and always prepared for his classes. Great job, Brody. Also in Mrs. Toast's class, we have Lexi Kenley. Lexi begins with the end in mind. Lexi is ready and willing for each day. Her participation is top-notch. Then, lastly, in Mrs. Matson's class, we have SKYLER White. SKYLER demonstrates all the 7 habits. SKYLER is an all-around good leader and student. She is kind, does her work on time, and shows that she cares about learning through top-quality work. Keep it up, SKYLER.
A big thank you to 4th grade leader Anna Whiteman and 2nd grade leader Grace KARR for helping with our video today. Congratulations to all of the NALI Leaders of the Month. The entire staff here at NALI is so proud of you. Please keep up the great work and your outstanding leadership. Way to go!